Many entrepreneurs start a business because they see a problem and know they can solve it. But spotting the gap is just the beginning. Staying competitive means continuously evolving, and in today's episode, we're talking with Andrew from Car Concierge, who not only recognized a need 8 years ago, but has continued to innovate to stay ahead. Car Concierge was founded to eliminate the headaches of car buying, offering a seamless experience that puts buyers in control. With a process designed entirely around the customer, Andrew and his team handle everything from negotiation to trade-ins, so their clients never have to step foot in the dealership. So Andrew is here to share his journey with us today. Another marketing podcast.
We swore we were never going to do this.
But here we are.
Welcome to Behind the Brand, the podcast for small business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs who are ready to start strong, stand out, and stay bold. Hosted by the powerhouse marketers at Moxie Creative, we're bringing you behind the scenes as we explore what it takes to build and grow a memorable brand. Ready to get behind the brand? Let's dive in.
So the best businesses, they don't just solve problems, they anticipate them before people even know that they have them. That's exactly what today's guest did when he started Car Concierge. So Andrew, before we dive in, can you introduce yourself and tell us in one sentence what Car Concierge does?
My name is Andrew Guthmiller. I'm the founder and CEO of Car Concierge. We're like a realtor for buying a car.
So let's take it back to the beginning. What made you decide to start this business, and what was the problem you saw in the industry that you wanted to solve?
So working inside a dealership, got to see firsthand the struggles that people have buying a car. It's not something that you do daily or monthly. It's every few years at most. When you're not familiar with the processes and what it takes to actually buy a car, it gets overwhelming, and people tend to struggle with it. After 6-8 hours in a car dealership, it just gets draining, and I thought there has to be a better way. So what I realized quickly is that the process exists for a reason, because it is complicated. So instead of changing the process, taking it on the consumer's behalf, take care of it for you and let us do all the work.
Was there a specific moment where you realized, okay, dealerships are kind of working against the buyer, I need to find a solution?
Yeah, there's one specifically that affected me greatly. It was just somebody came in to buy a car. On the test drive, I knew they were going to buy that particular car. I also knew exactly how much they needed for their trade to feel comfortable moving forward with it, and the number that they needed was substantially less than what it was worth. But we ran with that number, and they were excited about it, but we completely took advantage of them, and it made me feel really dirty, and it's what really jump-started my thoughts on how can we improve the car buying process for the consumer.
So taking just a few steps back, before you started Car Concierge, you worked on the dealership side, and I think that is really important for people to know that come and use you for your services, because you're not just coming from a point of, oh, I'm a business person and I saw a gap in the industry. You have actual experience of situations where you realize there really is a better way, and I think that is a very important piece of the pie.
Absolutely. I spent 10 years working for a dealership, started in sales, went to the finance department, and then new car manager, and then finally a general sales manager role. So 10 years of that experience really led me to having the information needed to help people through the process in the right way.
One other thing that I think is really notable about you, and that speaks to who you are and how you operate, is how you grew up. We've been in many conversations, so we've been working with you for the last 6-ish months, working on a rebrand for Car Concierge, working on a new website for Car Concierge. And through that process, we've learned a lot about you and how you grew up and how that has influenced a lot of the decisions that you've made. I'd love for you just to touch on that a little bit, because I do think that, again, like you working in a dealership, your background adds value into, what you're providing for your customers.
Sure. Yeah. Grew up in a town of 500 people in South Dakota. My parents have a farm. It was very community driven. Our closest neighbor was 5 miles away, but if they had an issue or they were on vacation, we'd lend a hand, do what we could to help them out. And that was very important to us, and continues to be in my personal day-to-day life today.
Yeah, those are definitely the values that you're bringing to Car Concierge, and we've seen and helped, shape that story, which is really fun. So as we jump back into how you spotted a gap in the market and decided to take a leap, what really was the antithesis for being like, yes, I'm going to go all in on this idea, because it's kind of a wacky idea. Like, when you think about it, it's very non-traditional to buy a car the way that you are buying a car. I have bought 2 cars in my lifetime and would have never even thought this was something that was possible. So how were you like, this is what I'm going to do?
It was kind of a weird twist of fate. I had this idea for multiple years before I left my job at the dealership. The dealership made some changes. They wanted to take a particular path, and I knew that I didn't want to be part of that path any longer. And so one Friday I got told what the new plan was. That following Saturday, I quit my job at 10 a.m. I didn't know I was going to, but I got asked how I felt about the changes that were being made.
Those last minute decisions are always the best.
You know, and just in that moment, I knew when I got asked that question, my tenure with the dealership was over. And so it took me a couple weeks of pondering life, like, do I want to get a different job? Do I want to go work somewhere else? Or do I want to take this leap? Fortunately for us, we were in a position where we could take a little bit of time and think through it carefully. And then one day I woke up and I said, no, this is what I need to do. I have to try this. I believe it's going to work. But you're right, it is a very unique mentality. I get asked all the time, why would I pay somebody to help me buy a car? I can do that on my own. But my thought is, I'm capable of roofing my house. I'm not going to, because somebody can do it much better and much quicker than I'm going to be able to do it, because that's what they do and they understand it. Like, I could buy a house without a realtor, but I'm not going to, because they understand all of the steps to the process and make sure everything gets done the right way. That's the same mentality here. This is what we do all day, every day. You do it once every 3 years, every 5 years, maybe 10 years. There's no way you can keep up with market trends and know what's going on unless you're really willing to put in the time and effort to research it before you make the purchase. So
Yeah, exactly. I want to quickly talk about the process of what it is that you do so that we can give that insight too. But I also am curious about when you first mentioned this concept to people when you were starting, like, what was their reaction?
The first person that knew besides my wife was my father-in-law. I'm like, this is what I'm kicking around. And he goes, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking about this. He goes, I think there's something there. I think you got to try this.
Yep.
Then I started telling my friends and family, and then I started telling people that worked in a car dealership, and that's where it got interesting. Friends and family were like, if anybody could pull it off, it's you. When I told people at a car dealership, they're like, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. You're just going to waste your time. It's always been people within a dealership that have pushed back on this concept the hardest.
Because it's new and different, and people don't like a lot of change. You can see it if you look at over time. History repeats itself. Every time there's a new concept, it's always gotten pushed back in its own industry.
Yeah, absolutely. When I started this, I had almost no clientele locally, purely East and West Coast. Over the last 8 years, as the Midwest starts to catch up with
Yeah,
trends,
we're always the last to get on board with
it's-
things.
Especially here.
It's funny, like, Minnesota is the fastest growing market that I have now out of the blue. Completely random. I'm not exactly sure. I've done nothing really different, but now it's really taking off in this market.
So back to Isabella's question. What exactly is it that you do? What does your process look like?
Sure. So everything begins with a discovery conversation, and it is a conversation. It would be very easy to put a form on a website that you fill out and say, hey, you know, I'm looking for this car and these features. We go find it, and that's it. I've always believed that initial step is the most important part of our process in truly understanding what you're trying to accomplish so that we can make sure that we're pairing you up with the right vehicle. There's so many different brands, and even within the brands, so many different models. I mean, there are millions of cars available for sale in the country at any given moment that could work for you. It's a matter of identifying your needs and everything else that goes along with it to identify the right car and make it happen. But once we're on the same page, we can begin searching, negotiating, and getting different opportunities in front of you. And once we all agree we found that right car, we'll start working through the process with you, for you, whatever, and make sure that it goes smoothly and everything gets handled the way it needs to so that you really don't have to put any effort into it. It literally makes it as simple as just signing your name and driving your new car. So
Yeah, which it seems so crazy. I
Yeah.
just think about the experiences that I've had buying a car, and I just would have loved to have an Andrew on my side to help me through that. So 8 years you've been at it, almost a full decade. It's crazy.
August 10th, I believe, is full 8
8 years.
years.
Okay.
So,
Wow, that's awesome. So in the beginning, when you look back at those early days, aside from maybe your dealership buddies thinking that you're silly, and maybe they're not buddies anymore, what were some of those big challenges that you had to get through when you started out?
visibility was the first thing. Not that I was the first to do something like this. In fact, I was far from it. But even though there were others before me, not many people realized that this was even a possibility. The concept of a broker or a concierge has been around for decades, and people don't know of its existence. That was the biggest challenge, just getting my name out there. We tried advertising very early, but the problem was we didn't know what we were doing. Like, when you start any business, you just don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
But when you're starting a business that you're also in the same time basically creating your own market for, it makes it even more of a you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Advertising was literally just wasted money. What we had to do was rely on repeats and referral clients and really provide an experience that people would want to share with others. That's what got us to this point, to be in a position to grow the way we have, to reach out to Moxie and be in a position to start advertising with people that know what they're doing when we're able to finally articulate what it is that we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not to say that in the last 8 years, you haven't created brand recognition and visibility for yourself. This new Car Concierge is Car Concierge 2.0. You had an existing brand, you have an existing website. So you did those things, but as you've grown, now you realize how important those things actually are to become visible in the marketplace. And you've done an awesome job of that already, but you're growing and looking for a brand and web presence that can grow with you. You're realizing how important those things are. And we've been just so excited to go on that ride with you, because I think what you're offering is a very needed service in today's world. And I know there are big things obviously on the horizon for Car
And I
Concierge.
just feel like I feel like you've started to have more competition. It's then important to then evolve. It's important to have that 2.0. So I'm curious, how has the industry changed since you launched? Like, in these 8 years from then to now, what's been the biggest change?
Well, COVID
Yeah.
is the easy answer. You know,
Everything comes back to COVID.
it does.
We were just talking about that before we
Changed
started recording.
everything.
It's amazing what something like that can do to be a disruptor, and not just the car industry, but everything
Yeah.
changed.
And it's not always for the worse, right?
No.
Like, there's been a lot of blessing in disguises that came from that period.
True. And I think we'll continue to see growth in a lot of ways because of what happened from that. COVID basically made me start over from scratch. Probably October or November of 2022, I almost quit. I just about couldn't take it anymore because we spent more time talking people out of buying cars and having them use our service.
Yeah.
It's hard to grow a business when you're talking people away from what you do.
Yeah.
Between the car shortage and, well, the chip shortage, which ultimately led to car shortage, labor hours cut and everything like that, pricing was pretty locked. The most value we provided was just making sure people didn't get completely ripped off if they did need to buy a car. But thankfully, 2023, things really made a quick change and our business started to blossom again. We had to redefine what our foundation was and what it looked like because of how things changed in the car industry, which was great for a lot of reasons. It sucked for others, but we were able to get our feet back underneath us and get to a point where we're at today.
When you had that moment of like, okay, I don't know if I can keep doing this, what made you be like, no, I have to push through this?
I knew that we were on the right path, and I knew that if I could just stick it out, everything would be okay. But there was no light at the end of the tunnel. There was no way of knowing when that was going to be. So it was just grit your teeth and move through.
I think with a lot of business owners, they have intuition, gut instinct to follow, and I've noticed that a lot with you. And I feel like something that you've done since the beginning with this business is you follow your intuition and allow opportunities to present themselves. You just kind of keep going on a path until you figure out what direction you're going. It just naturally evolves.
Yeah, owning any business is kind of like running a marathon, and then 400 meters short of the finish line, no matter how fast and how hard you run, the finish line never comes. You just got to keep running and keep going, following the paths that get presented to you. You do what you can to get through some of the lows so that you can truly enjoy the highs.
Yeah. So okay, I have a
love
question.
that so much.
I know,
Yeah.
I do too. This is why I was excited about doing this episode, because I just knew you were gonna have good things to say. So Taylor, you met Andrew at a networking group that I am now in.
Yeah.
And you called Taylor that day, Andrew, and said, like, I don't know what it was, like something about you, like, I want to be able to work with you. Were you even like actively looking for a marketing partner at the time?
No. We had been talking internally as an organization. We were talking about different things that we were eventually going to need to address. Like, we knew our website needed to be redone. We knew that our branding wasn't quite spot on to, representing who we were as a business. There was a lot of things that we knew were wrong, but it wasn't urgent at that moment. In meeting Taylor, for whatever reason, it went from important to urgent in a matter of 10 minutes.
It really was
Oh my
that
gosh,
fast.
that's so funny.
And she did her intro at that meeting. We took a recess, and right then and there, I'm like, we're going to have to talk very soon. So that was 15 minutes after you.
Yeah, and then I do think that day you called me and you're like, I'm serious, we need to set up a meeting. It was like,
Yeah.
okay,
And
let's
also,
go.
she spoke for like 1 minute.
Yeah,
It was like
yeah.
a 60-second max to these
Yep.
presentations.
Yeah.
What can
that's
I say?
hilarious. Yeah.
You nailed
Exactly.
it.
But that's where I was getting at with these opportunities kind of naturally present themselves for you. I feel like it's just so interesting.
I don't believe in luck per se. Luck is the result of you putting yourself in positions to find different opportunities. If you're out and doing what you can, you will run across different opportunities.
My favorite quote is luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Oh, I love it.
That is my favorite quote. I say it to myself all the time because opportunities come to you because you're prepared for them and because they're meant for you.
Right.
So, Taylor, what was the process like for you when you started working with Andrew? Where did you immediately see things that you were like, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that? What can help him?
You can be honest.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, when we start working with a new client, and Andrew was the same, my first thing that I do is I go and look at what they currently have. And sometimes clients come to us and they don't have anything. And sometimes they come to us and they kind of have this half-baked situation, or they have something that they like and it worked for a period of time and now it's not working. I feel like Andrew was a little bit in the middle. Like, there was really good things that were happening with the visual identity he had for Car Concierge. The website very clearly explained what you do, and I think that was the winning point, because what you do is one of those things that maybe doesn't make sense to people because it is a novel idea. And for many people, when they stumble upon Car Concierge, this website, that's the first time that they're reading about it. That was me. I did not know that this service existed. So immediately I knew Andrew and his team were on to something. This is a big service. They've been growing it and it can be so much bigger and better. I knew we would be able to help with that. The first thing was, okay, we need to give him a brand identity worthy of the service he's offering. We've said it before in a few other episodes, and we'll probably continue to say it in continuing episodes. The quality and integrity of your marketing should match the quality and integrity of the service you're providing. And for me, it just felt like maybe it's not connecting enough. One of the unique things about what you're doing is you service the soccer moms like myself, and you service the high-end luxury car lovers that are, seeking out, I don't even know what big luxury brands, Porsches, that, I would never drive in Upsala, Minnesota. So we had, the challenge there was to bridge both, right? How do we make your brand approachable, but also feel luxury? And that was the really fun piece of it. And I feel like we did a pretty good job.
I don't really think it would have been possible to do a better job.
Well, thank you.
Oh my gosh, that's so nice. Okay, now you have to give your insight, Andrew, on an outside perspective. What was your process like with the rebrand and new website, all of that?
It was terrible.
Oh wow. No. Let's end the podcast here. Cut that. We can cut that out, right?
Yeah. Okay. No, it was really interesting because it wasn't something that we were planning on doing. We had put no thought into it outside of, Taylor, we need your help. And we started having the conversations that went extraordinarily well. It's always fun working with people that are drawn to what you do as well. You guys saw what it was and my passion behind it. It was a fun collaboration of bringing ideas to the table that matched what I had to say. It felt good all the way through. And then the end result was a website that's beautiful. It's not ready yet, but it's almost there. And
You got to get your fellas in line. That's what's going on.
but we're almost done with the website, but the
Yeah.
rebrand, like the new logos and everything matches us really well. It's perfect.
It really does. I feel like every logo we do is perfect for that client, but there have been a few logos in the past couple months that I'm like, that is the absolute perfect logo for this person and their business. Anything else would just make absolutely no sense, and yours is one of them. I can't wait until we can fully put it out into the world. I think it's so fun and exciting, and I know we've done a little brand animation and I sent that to you, so I'll be excited when we can send that out, but that's just like gives me like butterflies. Like it's so fun.
No, I agree. I got chills when we were talking about it because I think, like you said, it just fits so well. And I remember holding the business card that we had done, and I was like, this is just so perfect.
Yeah. It's crazy to think like even the smallest detail, like a business card, just pops. It's really impressive.
Well, it's great to hear that you had a good experience. Have some people seen your rebrand? Have you gotten feedback?
Yeah, I had a meeting with my attorney because he wants to trademark a bunch of our stuff, especially with this rebrand. He finally got to see it and he goes, oh, that really is nice. That was one of my favorite responses. It just kind of like,
Coming from an attorney too, right? Like they're so stiff and like down to business. So
but no, like everybody has really been drawn to it. It looks great on the apparel that we've had put together.
Dan came in with a shirt the other day and I was like, oh, it's on there.
I love it.
So once you started to do all of this process, did you start to think that there's other areas in your business where you have to grow?
That is a very difficult question. Every day I wake up, there's a new thing that I'm
Yeah.
thinking about, and an opportunity that we need to really dive into and make better and do better. So
Yeah.
growth is just
Yeah.
part of the journey, right?
Yeah. And I do think that going through a branding and a website change, especially the way that we handle that process, does make clients think a lot about what the evolution of their business is going to be. You know, we're in that final stage of launching the website, and now there's kind of these last minute things like, well, what about this? Oh, we might be doing this. And they're just things that slowly creep and come up as the process unfolds because you're thinking about things differently. And that is part of our job too. If something doesn't make sense to us, then it probably doesn't make sense to the rest of the consumers. So, you know, working with our clients to say, okay, how can we explain this in a different way, or what is this going to look like? So it is an important process, and it's important to work with somebody that is going to ask those questions because it's only going to help your business be better.
Yeah, there's been multiple times that I've come to you with an idea like, I really need to know your opinion on this.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, on surface level it looks great, but you guys deep dive into it, and your answers have always been appropriate, whether it was what I wanted to hear or not. At the end of it, I knew that we were making the right choice.
Yeah, for sure. And I appreciate you coming to us and trusting us as a partner, because at the end of the day, that's what we want all of our clients to have, a really strong partnership with our clients, because that is how we're going to just continue to make each other better. And here we are, hopefully a week or two away from launching that beautiful website. And then there's more things that we're going to continue doing together. And I really look forward to what the future for Moxie and Car Concierge looks like.
Yeah, me too.
Me as well. There's a lot that's happened, but there's substantially more that's going to happen as time goes on, next couple of years for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely.
sometimes there's been a couple clients we've had where we've sat down and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a partnership for a long time. We're going to grow together, which I think is just really cool and something that I love.
Yeah, me too. Makes the job 10 times better when you have that. So with that, what do you feel like is next for you and your business?
Right now, it's just getting staffed appropriately to make sure that we can continue providing the type of service that we boast about. and then taking the next steps from an advertising front. I'm very excited to see what Isabella has put together for us or will come up with. And then, streamlining our process and creating some of the, infrastructure that we've discussed in the past that's going to take us to the next level in providing top-notch service to the clients that we have.
Which, let's touch on that really quick. The top-notch service that you provide, you don't want to grow too quickly because you don't want to be able to lose the quality of service that you have. And that just shows so much about your culture and your values and what your business surrounds. And I just think that is so admirable.
Well, I appreciate that. Sometimes it's hard because I know that we could dump a whole bunch of fuel on this fire and just take a bunch of clients and do a half-assed job. But that's what it would be. If we grew too fast, we would just be doing half the work that we should be, and I don't want it to ever come to that. I want to be overstaffed to an extent so that our clients get the type of experience that we've wanted to create. And it's kind of funny too, because I feel like we could do an average job and people would still love us because it's still better than the best situation at a car dealership more often than not. But I don't ever want to just do average. I want to go above and beyond every time that we have a chance to.
Yeah. Okay, now I have a question that sums up that. This podcast is never going to end, so we're just going to be asking questions. And I'm asking this because we put out an episode this morning on where to save and where to spend when you're starting a business or when your business is growing. One of the things we touched on was hiring. You did just hire a new employee that does exactly what you do and helps people find their dream vehicle. What made you decide that you were comfortable with bringing on another person and maybe bringing on one or two more?
It took me a long time to realize that it was okay to gamble on myself and my team. I knew we needed to hire long before we did. So, but the reason we didn't is that fear of, if we bring somebody on, are we ready to make sure they're taken care of? Are we going to be able to pay them every single month? Because they're coming to us for a paycheck as well as anything else. And so it's just nerve-wracking asking somebody to take that leap of faith with us. And I'm glad we did, because every time we have gambled on ourselves, we've come out tenfold. If I could give any new business owner advice, it'd be to make sure you're bringing people into your business as quickly as possible that are going to take care of the things that you're not good at. I'm good at a lot of things, but I have people around me that fill in the holes for the things that I'm not good at. And once I started asking for help, we started growing in a much better, much quicker path than we would have without it. So
I think that kind of leads to our final questions.
I know. This has been so good.
With every podcast episode that we do with our guests, we like to end it with a few final kind of rapid fire questions. The first question is, what's the best advice you'd give to someone who sees a gap in the market but is afraid to take the leap?
If you believe in yourself and that gap and you know that you can create a solution for it, just go for it. Regret is the most painful thing you could ever have. Dealing with a little bit of pain and burden of going through it, it'll be worth it in the end. Even if you fail, you will have learned so much and you won't have to wonder what if.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I always tell myself I can either stay here and I can stay complacent where I am, or I can make the jump and see where I'm at, go through burdens, and then I don't have to sit and wonder what would have happened if I would have just taken the jump.
Absolutely.
Years later. So.
Isabella Severson, everybody, wise beyond her years. I don't think I would have ever said that at almost 22 years old. I was too busy.
It still baffles me that you're only 22 years.
Right? I know.
Maybe I've lived a few lives. I think I have.
And then our last question, what is one way a business owner can start preparing for the future?
Oof, that's a difficult one.
What is one thing that you're doing today, maybe, that you're preparing for the future that someone else could?
I don't know if I'm going to answer this the way you were hoping. My answer is I'm constantly looking at what we're doing from a perspective of how are we going to evolve, how is the market going to evolve so we can stay ahead of it. If you get up every day and try to learn something new and think through things a little bit differently than you had the previous day, it'll prepare you for anything that could come because, we failed with the COVID thing. My opinions, my beliefs were just wrong. I didn't expect so many things to happen the way that they did, and it really opened my eyes to we weren't prepared for what took place. The fact that we considered calling it quits proved to me that we weren't prepared, so I've gone out of my way since then to think more progressively, think through what could happen, what will happen, and be ready for all of that to be wrong and just be able to take it.
Yeah,
So,
that was the perfect answer.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today on Behind the Brand. It's been a pleasure getting to talk with you and learn more about your business, more than we have in the last 6 months, and just sit down in a little bit of a different environment. As you can tell, the work doesn't really just stop once your business has been successful. If you want to keep growing and advancing for the greater good, you have to be willing to invest in things like rebranding, websites, hiring, preparing for the future. All of those things matter, and you can't just kind of sit back and see what may come. It does take a lot of work to build a business and keep it moving forward.
Gotta water your plants,
Yes, absolutely.
fertilize them.
So, our task for the listeners this week is to think about one thing you can do to future-proof your business, whether it's refining your brand, investing in marketing, or thinking bigger about your next steps. Don't wait until you're forced to change. Be ahead of the curve.
You got it. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Behind the Brand. If you liked this episode, share it with a friend. If you didn't, share it with an enemy. To keep up with us, follow along on our socials. Links are in the show notes below.